The sun had barely risen over the golden fields when Emma Parker walked quietly down the dirt path with her younger brother, Jacob. The Parker siblings had lived their entire lives on this small farm, tending to crops, feeding the animals, and keeping to themselves. They weren't the loud, boastful kind. Emma was especially reserved, her calm presence often mistaken for weakness. Few people knew her past, and she preferred to keep it that way. She wanted nothing more than to give Jacob a simple, peaceful childhood far away from the chaos she once knew. But peace is something bullies never allow for long. That morning, 3 boys from town rode their bikes up to the farm gate. They had been harassing Jacob for weeks, mocking his hand-me-down clothes, calling him names, and sometimes stealing vegetables from their roadside stand. Emma had warned them once to leave her brother alone, but the boys only laughed, calling her the mute farm girl. To them, Emma was nothing but a quiet country girl, too timid to fight back. What they couldn't possibly imagine was that just a few years earlier, Emma had been halfway across the world, serving as a Navy SEAL. She had endured brutal training, survived missions most couldn't dream of, and carried scars she never spoke about. The uniform was gone, but the strength remained. The bullies parked their bikes and swaggered over to Jacob, who was struggling to carry a heavy basket of eggs from the coop. One of them stuck out a foot, tripping him, and the eggs smashed into the dirt. Jacob's face flushed with humiliation. The boys laughed, pointing and jeering, their cruelty cutting deeper than they realized. Emma rushed over, helping her brother to his feet, her voice calm and steady as she told the boys to leave. But instead of backing off, they turned on her. "What are you gonna do, farm girl?" one sneered. "Call your chickens to come peck us." The others laughed, emboldened by the thought that Emma was powerless. Emma felt something stir inside her, a shift she hadn't felt since her military days. For months, she had tried to bury that side of her, tried to live only as Jacob's guardian, as a simple farmer. But seeing her brother humiliated and broken lit a fire in her chest. She stood tall, her eyes narrowing, her body language changing in an instant. The boys didn't notice the subtle shift, but Jacob did. He had seen that look before, the rare moments when his sister moved with the sharpness of a soldier. He whispered softly, "Emma, don't." But it was too late. The bullies shoved Jacob again, and this time Emma stepped between them, her voice low but firm. "Enough." The boys smirked, thinking they had her cornered. One reached out to push her shoulder, only to find his wrist twisted in an instant, his body spun around and pinned before he even realized what happened. He yelped in shock as Emma released him gently but firmly. Another lunged, and she sidestepped, using his momentum to send him stumbling into the Parker farm sat at the edge of town, where the dirt roads ended and the endless fields began. It wasn't much, just a weathered barn, a small farmhouse, and acres of land that required more work than 2 people could handle. But to Emma and her younger brother Jacob, it was home. After their parents passed away in an accident, Emma had taken full responsibility for Jacob. She gave up her life in the military and returned to the quiet farm where they were raised. To the townsfolk, she was simply the quiet farm girl. She rarely spoke, kept to herself, and never attended community events. What no one knew was that Emma Parker was a decorated Navy SEAL who had served on missions so dangerous they were never spoken of publicly. She had survived firestorms, rescues, and moments where her life had hung by a thread. But here, back in her hometown, she only wanted peace. Unfortunately, bullies are experts at finding the quiet ones. It started with mocking Jacob at school. He was smaller than the other kids, wore patched-up clothes, and carried the weight of loss in his eyes. When the 3 neighborhood boys realized how much it hurt him, they pushed harder. They would follow him on their bikes, call him names, steal from the family's roadside produce stand, and throw stones at the farm gate. Emma had asked them politely to stop, but her calm warnings only encouraged them. One Saturday morning, Jacob was carrying a basket of fresh eggs to the farmhouse when the boys cornered him at the gate. They shoved him, laughed when the eggs cracked all over his clothes, and called him, "Poor little scarecrow." Emma came running, her voice calm but sharp. She told them to leave, but the boys sneered, circling her as if they had found a new target. "You don't scare us," one of them said. "You're just some quiet farm girl." That's when everything changed. Emma had spent years burying her instincts, but in that moment, she couldn't ignore the old training that kicked in like a reflex. Her posture straightened, her breathing slowed, and her eyes locked on them with the focus of a soldier. The boys didn't see it, but Jacob did. He recognized the look that said his sister was no ordinary woman. When one of the boys reached out to shove her, Emma moved so fast he barely saw her hand. In an instant, he was on the ground, staring up at the sky, his wrist pinned harmlessly but firmly. The others rushed forward, and Emma countered with effortless precision, sidestepping, redirecting, never striking harder than necessary. Within moments, the three bullies were in the dirt, stunned and humiliated. But Emma didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She simply crouched down and spoke softly. Strength isn't about hurting people. It's about protecting them. If you think being cruel makes you powerful, you're wrong. One day, you'll understand that. Then she released them. The bullies scrambled away, whispering about what just happened. Jacob stared at his sister in awe. Emma, where?